Hi, I'm Mrs. Renner, and today I'm going to talk to you about mathiness in physics. You probably have heard that physics is a really mathy class. Before we get into any math, though, I want to define a few things and sort of ease you into it. And I want you to know that we're not going to do all the crazy math that you would do in an upper level physics course, like honors physics or AP Physics 1 or AP Physics C. If you are interested in the mathy stuff and you want to see more, you can always ask your teacher, and we would all be happy to provide more of this stuff for you. But for right now, I just want to give you a little bit of an introduction about some expectations going forward. Okay, so let's take this familiar situation of someone running a race, okay? And please don't be jealous of my drawing abilities. This is my person at the starting line, and then they go to a finish line, right? So they travel a certain distance, right? And someone here has like a stopwatch, and they can time them, right? So apparently this is an analog stopwatch. Very old-fashioned. So with a stopwatch, you're going to measure time. So we have a distance and a time. And I bet you that from your previous experience, you've learned about something called speed, right? And you could say, and in this case, we're going to say it's the average speed, but we're not going to worry too much about those little things. We're going to say that speed is distance divided by time, right? So that should be pretty familiar to you. Okay. One of the things I want to talk to you about today is some shortcuts that we use in physics class. Speed equals distance over time is all nice and good, but I'm pretty lazy, and I would like to have a little bit of a shorthand to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce variables. Okay? And instead of writing distance, I could write D for distance, right? And T for time, right? So D is the variable for distance, okay? So that means that a variable is the symbol, right, that replaces it in an equation, right? The symbol in an equation. And so when I see D in the equation, I know that that stands for distance. And one of the things that we'll talk about is, to a physicist, letters mean something, right? When I see T, I think time. Okay. So we'll often talk about the common variables that we use. And so you'll notice I didn't put anything for speed yet. You might think that that's S, right? Because distance started with a D, time started with a T. Well, speed starts with an S. Well, we actually use V, okay? And some of you might have also heard the term velocity, okay? And that's why speed and velocity are very similar. I'll be writing this on the next slide, so don't worry if you didn't catch what I just said. But I just wanted to introduce the idea of a variable, okay? So D, let's just take D. D is a variable for distance. But there's another thing I want to talk about, and that is what it's measured in. Distance is measured in, you might say feet or inches, but that's just because we're in America and we use a stupid system. But hopefully you know about the metric system, okay? And we are going to talk about it in meters, okay? And so meters is what we call a unit, all right? So to summarize, a variable is the letter that replaces the quantity. Okay, so that would be like D. Okay, and it replaces the quantity, and it's usually in an equation. The unit is what the quantity is measured in. So in this case, our unit is meters, which we give an abbreviation M. So you can see where we could maybe get confused because we're using a lot of just single letters. But the variable is what's in the equation, all right? In equation, okay? And the unit is what it's measured in. So this is if I was going to talk about 20 meters as a number, I could write 20m. So the unit is the thing that comes after a number, and the variable is the thing that's in an equation. And it's really important that we keep those clear because a lot of people mess those up. So that's why we're having this little talk right now. So what we're going to use in physics class, and you'll use this in all of your science classes, is something called the SI system. And it's French, and my French is horrible. It's like Système International, right? Basically, international system. And this is what we use in science. And it's often called the MKS system. And the MKS system means that it's meters, kilograms, and seconds. In this course, we're going to use a lot of units that are made up of meters, kilograms, and seconds, and we're going to give them new names. So we're going to be talking about units a lot this year. But just remember that meters, right, is that SI unit for distance. Oh my goodness, sorry about that. The SI unit for distance is a meter. The SI unit for mass is a kilogram, and the SI unit for time is a second. So we're going to be using a lot of abbreviations, okay? Meters, kilograms, seconds. So since we're going to be learning so many different variables and units, we're often going to make these tables. Actually, I would love for you in the back of your notebook to start this table, and then we'll be adding to it throughout the year. So you're going to have space for the quantity, like our distance, time, and speed, and then a column for a variable and a column for the SI unit. And so we'll fill out these first three to start with. So remember, the variable is the symbol that replaces it. So for distance, it's D. For time, it's T. And do you remember what I said speed was? It was V. Okay, so what this is showing you is that, right, the variables are not always obvious, okay? So it's important that we learn the common variables because it's like a language to physicists. So it's important that we use a common language. Okay, so the SI unit is what this thing is measured in. So if I was to say that I went a distance of 20 meters, or something took a time of 3 seconds. Okay. Now, what do we think speed? Well, you're probably used to speed in miles per hour, which of course is a distance per time. But because we're in the SI units, the unit for speed is going to be meters per second. This is, all right, meters per second. So that's what that division sign means, right? We write it as a fraction, m over s. All right, and I want you to try to write it as like a proper fraction with a top and a bottom and not sideways. And that's because when we do math with this, it'll be important to think about it as a fraction because then things will be multiplied and canceled out just like you did with fractions. Okay, so I hope that you learned something today and have an idea about how we're going to be moving forward in physics. Thanks for listening.